Karzai? I mean, is it?
Well, I think he was an experienced man. He was picked up by the United States, put him in the power. He was nobody, so they just put him there, and as a president of a country with no experiences. So that's why we're facing those.
And so, is it in our best interest to just keep someone like that there because it's almost like status quo? Or
Well, I mean, we have, unfortunately, we have done this in Middle East many, many times. We see all these leaders of Middle East today. All of them are in trouble. If you look at from Iraq, going in Arab world, from Iraq all the way to Morocco, these are the planted leadership that we put since World War II, and these people are there, and they're not qualified, and they're not thinking about the people because they were not elected democratically.
mm-hmm.
They were brought and put there, and they are serving somebody else, not their own people. And that's why we are facing this dilemma today in Middle East.
So, if you somehow had some access to President Obama or his team, what would you tell them to I mean, what would be the first steps you would tell them to take in order to make this whole situation less volatile and unstable?
Well, I got very lucky one time that I went to White House, and I told him about that. What are you doing for Afghanistan? And he said, I'm going to take care of Afghanistan, and Afghanistan will be a very peaceful country. But what I see is that most interferences coming from outside. They are mostly, when you look at the Taliban, majority are not Afghans. There are Afghans among them, but there are a lot of them Arabs, a lot of Pakistanis volunteering in the process. I mean, just recently, for example, they were bombing in Kabul, and one of the cities, Jalalabad, where they caught all the people were all Pakistanis. So the idea is that this idea of the fundamentalist Islam is more took root inside Pakistan, and those sanctuaries are there, and it is very easy for them to pass this way. And that's why the danger is that Middle East today, the Arab world, may face the same situation, because among them, the Islamic Brotherhood, for example, is extremely strong in Egypt. And they are the most organized people. With this revolution that we saw, the Islamic fundamentalist group in Egypt is very, very powerful. And most likely in next election, they will have a very good standing in parliament, the future election. Same thing in Jordan, we have the same problem, very strong Islamic fundamentalism. And also the Wahhabi movement inside Saudi Arabia. And then you have the Shia movement, which is Iran is supporting. So these movements are very, very strong and very active in that part of the world.
So these movements are there because of certain ethnic tribes, or I'm sorry, I'm not.
No, it's mostly the Islamic groups are divided by two. The majorities, the Muslims of the world is Sunni,
Right.
and the minorities is Shia. The only country which is with 99% Shia is Iran. And then, for example, Iraq has majority Shia, but you have a big Sunni. And then in Syria, you have the Alawi group, which is very small minority, but they are the ruling class, and the rest of the country is the Sunni country. So as a result, it's mostly division of things, like Catholic and Protestant is ruling the country.
Right.
So where is the majority, where is minority?
So in Syria, for example, since you mentioned that was one of the three countries that are, I guess, the high priority.
Yeah.
What is the current status now? Is it because the Sunni majority are trying to exert more power, or?
Yes, that's one part of it, but they want to, the younger people, because most of the population is almost younger, they want a change from this old guards. And of course, within that, you have this movement of revolution, we call it. You have a different group. You have a religious group there. You have intellectuals, and you have a left group. So they are all united right now against one cause.
Wow.
But once that is settled, naturally these guys were going to fight for power. And that's the reason I'm very nervous about for American policy, that if they decided to arm this group in Libya, we don't know who they are. Once they get rid of Gaddafi, they could turn the same guns against the West. So that's have to be very careful what they're doing.
So in many ways, I think because of your, your background coming from Afghanistan, you're very worried that could be easily repeated in, let's say, Libya. I mean, what happened to Afghanistan?
Absolutely. It's Afghanistan, Iran, what's happened to Iran. The first fundamentalism came in Iran in 1973, Ayatollah Khomeini, and then later on in 1992, Afghanistan, the government collapsed.
So, I'm wondering, since you're a professor at Harold Washington, if you can give us a sense of how current, like, Chicago college students, how much do they know about the Middle East, and after they take some of your classes, do you think that you've helped stimulate their world view, or do you think that as an American education system we still have far to go? Or
I think the geography is totally, I'll give F to most of them. But what I did is that I created two courses there. One was on Middle East history, and one was in Far East. So in Far East, I teach India, China, Japan, Korea, and all that area. In Middle East, I teach from Afghanistan all the way to Morocco.
wow.
And I try to use a lot of maps so the student could. Some of the students, unfortunately, had no idea where Iraq is or where Afghanistan is. And that's sometimes I say that in Egypt, every classroom, we have a big world map. And it's so much easy to just go look at it. But while many countries of the world, developing countries, that people do not have that access to this kind of stuff. So unfortunately, the high school education was very weak. And they came and they have no idea, as far as no interest in politics. And my classes are usually, I ask students that everybody should come with any political issue. For 15 minutes, we'll discuss world politics, what's going on. And barely I see somebody raise hand and talk about some issue. Because I tell them what news you should look for, CNN or for BBC or those networks. But unfortunately, the geography is very weak.
So thank you so much, Zalmay, for coming back and for helping us understand what's going on in the Middle East.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
I've had the great pleasure of talking to Dr. Zalmay Gulzad, professor at Harold Washington College and a community activist. And I'm Yvonne Lau. Thanks for joining us on Conversations. Hope to see you next time.